Headlock Pro Wrestling Interview.
Ja, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Headlock, dem Pro Wrestling Interview. Mein Name ist Markus Gronemann und ich habe heute hier unseren ersten weiblichen Gast im Interviewformat, Nina Samuels. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good, thank you. At the moment, gearing up to a big show this weekend, which is Wrestle Queendom for Pro Wrestling Eve. So just got back from the gym, training hard and wrestling Lizzie Evo, and I know that she is no joke, so I'm making sure that I'm preparing myself and getting in the best shape that I possibly can.
That's good to hear. So I actually saw you in person last weekend in Austria for Rings of Europe. You were in a title match there. I think it was your first time wrestling in Austria, right?
Yes, first time even visiting Austria. So yeah, it was very exciting.
So how did you like it? Or did you get to see anything, or was it just in and out?
It was very in and out. I think I landed at 11:30 a.m. and we were picked up to go to the airport the next morning at 3:30 a.m. And because there was so much going on with the show, we didn't have much of a chance to explore. Although I did manage to walk to one of the local shops and buy a big cake to have after my match. So yeah, I always like to at least try and sample some local food, and that was delicious. But yeah, I'd love to go back again and try and explore the place a bit more.
Yeah, hopefully you will, because I joined your match very much and hope to see more of you in country as well. So you've talked about wrestling for Eve this weekend. You've been wrestling for Eve for a long time, even during your time with WWE. So what can you tell us about Pro Wrestling Eve? It's an all women's promotion, I think, in London. What's it like to be there?
Yes, all women's promotion. The shows mainly happen in London, although we've occasionally ventured out to Manchester. They're great shows to be a part of. Dan Reed, the promoter, he really supports women, champions women, and to him as well, it's not just a wrestling promotion; it's a platform for women to develop and improve. And I mean, before I started in Pro Wrestling Eve, this might be hard for some people to believe, but I was not confident on the microphone at all. Even though I'd done some acting before, the thought of just talking on a microphone and delivering a promo was something that was very scary for me. But Dan actually gave me promo time on the microphone for almost every single show. So I think it was there that I really found my voice as a character. And yeah, that was so invaluable, because I think that was what helped me grow and what helped me stand out from others was my microphone skills and my character there. So yeah, it's always been one of my favorite promotions to wrestle for sure.
So we can talk a bit about your mic skills, because you became very well known on NXT UK for doing the Nina Samuels show, actually.
Yes.
How did that come about? Was it your idea? Was it their idea?
So I think initially it was, I think all the way back in 2019, it was talked about as a potential in-ring segment. But then that never happened. And then an idea was floated about me being a backstage interviewer briefly, again in 2019, just when our backstage interviewer wasn't going to be there. So we thought it might be something fun. And that was an idea from one of the writers. But again, it never really materialized. But I think because it had been talked about, there were always ideas in the back of my head and thinking, okay, if this was ever to happen, how would it work? And then again, during lockdown, there was potential for it to be a studio segment again. But then because Noam Dar had his Supernova sessions, it was going to be too similar and too crowded. So, and he was doing so well with that. And then it happened. It was after my storyline with Zaya Brookside, where things didn't go well for me. I lost our feud and ended up having to be her personal assistant for a month, and it was a very humiliating experience for the character. And then the character wasn't on TV for a while, so it was an idea of, because essentially as Nina Samuels, the Nina Samuels show is just Nina Samuels performing. So it's not always necessarily, the concept of it wasn't always to be a specific show in itself. Like, in my eyes, anytime I step in the ring, I'm welcoming the crowd to the Nina Samuels show. And it kind of came from a character perspective, feeling like I was being denied opportunities and things keep going wrong, and me really trying to force the idea that, no, this is the Nina Samuels show, this is my show. And that's where the interviewing came about. It was, from a character standpoint, it's the desperation of wanting to make something about myself and wanting to be featured. I guess you could say the lines blur a little bit there, because, you know, all of us that get into wrestling, we all want to be featured more. We all want to, you know, get our character across. And yeah, it's sort of, I guess, where art imitates life sort of thing, where it worked. I'd like to say me as a person was not so neurotic about it, but it worked from a character standpoint, because that was the motivation for the character wanting to start this show. And then, yeah, we didn't think it would last as long as it did, but it just kind of took on a life of its own. I started filming extra content outside of the episodes itself, just initially just filming them myself, putting them on social media. And then it just really took off, and it got so popular with the social media team, the creative team, that they decided they wanted to involve it a bit more and film them officially, which, you know, led to me getting amazing opportunities, like going to the WWE live event in London and interviewing Natalia, Randy Orton, Riddle, and Drew McIntyre, which was an incredible day. So yeah, it was not meant to grow to the extent that it did, but I'm very glad it did, because I feel like it's an important part of my legacy with the brand.
Yeah, and the things you mentioned with Riddle and Orton and Natalia, that's actually is on YouTube. So for people who haven't seen it, they can check it out there. I always enjoyed those segments a lot. I did all the NXT UK reviews for the Wrestling Observer site, so I saw pretty much every episode. So I saw your progress on the show as well. And I really enjoyed it, because it didn't always come off heelish. It was a little bit of an oddball segment at times, and at times people were even feeling sympathy for you, maybe for not accomplishing or getting the show on the road the way you liked it. Any fun stories or any backstage reactions, maybe things that didn't make the air? Anything you can tell us about that?
We do have I've got footage of it somewhere that never got released. It was actually for what was meant to be, what would have been the last episode of the Nina Samuels show, but it never got released, because it was after they decided to close the brand. Sam Grabwell was creeping on camera. I was in the middle of interviewing Mark Andrews, and Sam Grabwell decided to walk into the shot, seductively eating a Magnum, trying to distract me. So we have footage of that. I've also got one, again, due to COVID restrictions with limits of who could come into the building, there was one segment that I had to film with Gallus. And because I was not allowed to go to the studio due to a maximum amount of numbers, we actually filmed it in the underground car park of our hotel, pretending that they were arriving at the building. And because I'd done all my hair and makeup just to film this one minute clip, it was actually Millie McKenzie filmed it for me. And then we decided we'd go on a little walk and do a photo shoot to make the use of the outfit, the hair and the makeup. And we filmed an impromptu Nina Samuels show with some ducks that were swimming by in the lake near the hotel. So who knows? Maybe I'll let that footage see the light of day one day. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fun, actually. Speaking about the makeup, the hair, you had the little hat that kind of took on a life of its own. So the outfits, was that all your idea, or was that something that WWE wanted you to wear?
No, they give us a lot of freedom in terms of what we wear and how we want to dress. And for me, the image was always a big part of the character, because if I'm going to be an extroverted, larger than life character, I felt that it was important to dress that way. And I thought a character that sees themselves on the level of stardom that Nina Samuels did needs to dress as such. So I definitely had a lot of fun putting the outfits together. And yeah, the new hat was, so it only started right near the end of my time in NXT UK, but I've been wearing it a lot during the indies as well. And I've had a lot of fun with that. I've got to say, I think there's some matches where the hat has been so popular, it's almost like taken over the chants at the beginning of the match. And I've had to let people settle a bit and get it out of their system. And me and Millie McKenzie, actually, recently, we wrestled at Riot Cabaret in London. And the hat was actually destroyed. She stole the hat and things went a bit wrong, and she ended up squashing the hat, much to the audience's amusement. Luckily, I had a spare for the next show, but yeah, it's good fun, like welcoming the crowd into things like that. And I think, yeah, it just added a little something to give the character an extra nod. And yeah, as much as I will react like I'm offended that the audience are making fun of my hat, I like to give them something to talk about, something to shout about. It makes the show a lot more fun.
So Millie is actually somebody you wrestled quite a lot inside of NXT UK and also on the indies. Mm-hmm. And you've had tons of matches on NXT UK. You've actually been on the first episode that ever aired, wrestling Toni Storm at the time. And you basically wrestled, I think, pretty much everyone on the roster during your time there. So what were some of your favorite opponents, favorite matches, favorite moments, maybe?
So you say I wrestled nearly everyone. It actually, statistically, it was quite different. I went, because I had a lot of story feuds. So I wrestled a lot of matches with Zaya, a lot of matches with Amel, but there were so many people that I never got to lock up with at all. So, for example, Stevie Turner, Kaylee Ray, now Alba Fire, Doudrop, I never wrestled her. Ginny, never wrestled. Meiko Satomura was another one, which was such a dream match for me, which never happened. So yeah, there were great opponents that I worked. Millie for sure is someone who I always love working. Like, she's great. She brings out the best of me, and I have to try and reach the level that she's at because she's so accomplished. But at the same day, as much as it being a challenge, it's also almost like a day off wrestling Millie, because she's just such a joy. It's such a joy to wrestle. So she's definitely one of my favorite opponents that I had during my time in NXT UK, and it's great that we've been able to wrestle more since then as well.
So you've also wrestled a lot for other promotions during your stay. So how did that work? Was that something that WWE allowed you to do, or was that something that you had to ask special permission?
Yes, we had to ask permission for any independent shows that we worked. And the rules varied a bit. So when we first started, it was fairly free. And then they added in some extra rules. For example, like we couldn't wrestle for another independent show a week for the week before tapings, just to allow time where, for our body to recover, to make sure that we were fresh for tapings. And then after COVID, as things got a bit more restricted as well, just because they were very cautious of making sure that, no one caught COVID, that nothing was affected for their tapings. And then when we were allowed again, the rules were restricted a little more. So we just couldn't be filmed for any on-demand or streaming services as well. So it did limit what we can do, because obviously in the modern business model for wrestling, the online content is such an important part of it. So, understandably, not all promotions could make it work in terms of a business model. Eve was luckily somewhere that still did. They still gave me and Millie a platform to do a dark match. And, Dan, like I said before about it being a bit of a developmental stage, like sometimes Dan would have certain people that he'd want to certain wrestlers that he'd want to bring something out of. So, he likes using me and Millie to, try and bring people up to that level wise, because the amount that we learned at the Performance Center was just crazy. Like, if I think of everything I know now compared to before I'd ever been there, it's night and day. So, and we were so lucky to get that training, that any chance that we have to pass on that knowledge and help bring up other people as well, I think is really, really important for the business to grow, because I feel like to have all that knowledge and not share any of it would be selfish to me. So, and all these things that they said that sort of blew my mind, and like, oh gosh, yeah, even with psychology, things like that. I love being able to pass that on and seeing it click in other people the way it clicked with me when I got told these things.
So that's a good segue, maybe. You mentioned the week before tapings. I think you would train at the Performance Center in London. That's what some of the talent also told me. So maybe tell us a bit about that. How would that week look? Who were the trainers there? What would you do? And how would the knowledge transfer, so to speak, work?
Mm-hmm. So before COVID, we'd be there for like sort of 4.5 days. So the last day would be a half day, because that's when we'd drive to wherever the taping was going to be, because that was when we were on tour. And then after COVID, it was extended more, because so the camps would generally be about 2 weeks, thereabouts, including the taping itself. Just to, again, because, not as many schools were open, especially at the beginning when we came back, no schools were open. So they really wanted to give us a chance to ease our way back in, recondition ourselves. So each day would normally be a 1-hour gym session and a 2-hour in-ring session, which would usually be with either James Mason or Johnny Moss. And Johnny Saint was there to help as well. Meiko Satomura also helped with training. And sometimes as well, wrestlers would take certain sessions. So Rampage Brown, Jordan Devlin, Tyler Bay, various wrestlers. Noam Dar was another one. So that was great, because you got to mix up your training, because you learn different things from different people. And then also in there, you'd sometimes have promo classes. Match study classes were really important for us. Watching back our own matches, seeing how we can improve, as well as watching, other matches as well, just to learn and grow. And sometimes we're doing an in-house show as well. So just a small in-house show during the week, just again to get more match practice, because, like I say, for the majority of time that we were back in the BT Sport era, we weren't allowed to do any matches outside. So it was a lot of pressure on TV, because, we'd step in the ring and it would be the first time that we'd had a match for 6 weeks minimum. So, the sort of practice in-house shows were very important for just making sure that we stayed on our game and stayed fresh.
So how was the interaction with the NXT crew, with the office back in the US? Did they were they there via video? Because I think I heard, or I saw some clips where Shawn Michaels would talk to the people there. How would that work for you?
Yes. So before COVID, normally Shawn Michaels and Matt Bloom would fly over for every taping. Since COVID, everything was done remotely. So they were there for the entire day while we were filming, giving notes, giving advice. You could pop on the headset and talk to them, and they could, talk through the speaker in the studio, give us notes, give us feedback. And then they were always available to email after the show as well. So after the tapings, you could email them, get advice, and then we would do some match study classes via Zoom. Again, just getting tips from them, tweaking the finer details, things that we can do differently next time. So as much as I would have loved for them to be able to come over each time, given the restrictions that they had, I think they managed to make it work as best as possible to be available and be there for part of our development.
So we've talked about the pandemic now quite a bit. So just for context, you had the last set of tapings in March 6 and 7. That was the same day that 16 Karat Gold was going on in Germany, because I was at that show. I remember that very vividly. And then on the Sunday, you had one more match for Southwest Wrestling Maria May. And then basically the world shut down for 7 months. how was that for you? How did you spend the pandemic, and how was communication from WWE? When did you find out there would be nothing going on, or when did they tell you when things would start up again? And also, how did you stay in shape during that time?
It was very difficult because just before the pandemic, I was actually due to fly out to Orlando for my first trip with WWE. I was going to be there for about 3.5 weeks, training at the Performance Center, doing live events, and then going to WrestleMania wrestling on Access as part of NXT UK tapings, which was a huge, huge step for me because that was, in terms of progression and going up the ladder, that was what I saw as the next step for me. And unfortunately, it was, so let me think of the rough dates. I think it was about the 15th of March or something that I was due to fly over. It was the Sunday at 10 a.m. and we found out at 6 p.m. the night before that the trip was not going to be happening. So, I'd prepared to be away for 3.5 weeks, and next thing I know, I'm not leaving the flat for however many months. So that was really, really hard. I think it was helped by the fact that we were all in the same boat. You can't be too woe is me because this is happening to everyone, and so many people were in worse positions than we were. WWE were great in terms of the fact that we got paid in full for the entire time. They gave us online acting classes, online match study classes. So we were definitely very much kept in the loop. And while they're putting together the highlight clips that, filled our TV slot, we'd be filming little bits and pieces at home. So that was good practice in itself, just getting used to doing self-tapes at home, learning where are the best places to set up. In terms of keeping in shape, I did a lot of Pilates over lockdown. There was a company called Zero Gravity Pilates who ran a daily live class on Instagram. And I started doing that, which helped mentally as well, because it was a live class, it was a set thing in my day to get up for and tick off. I go for a walk every day around my park. So I made sure that I was getting out, getting some fresh air. Deck of cards workouts. I ordered a pull-up bar, ordered some free weights to have at home. Before that, I was doing sort of bicep curls with wine bottles and things just to try and get some kind of weight. And I bought a big gallon bottle of water to do some kettlebell swings with. So definitely improvised. Joe Coffey was really helpful for that as well, because Joe Coffey was doing a sort of online workout of the day on his Instagram story. So again, that was something that was brilliant to follow along with. And, I think it helped a lot of people because it gave people some clarity of things that they could do, and everything was exercises that could be done in the home. So that was great of him to do that. And it definitely really helped me as well to keep me on top of things and keep me staying in shape.
Yeah, William Regal on his podcast also mentioned the online classes during the pandemic. Were you part of classes with him as well, or were there various people?
Yes. So he'd come on and join our classes as well. So it's brilliant. Like the man can talk for hours because he's got so much wisdom to impart. So he can look at one headlock and talk to you for an hour about the headlock and just like keep giving out these gems of knowledge. And again, it's a sort of pinch me moment as well, where you're stuck at home in a pandemic, but then you're jumping on a Zoom call with William Regal, so it was great having him on board as well. And he was someone actually that did still fly over for some of our tapings, so he'd be there helping out, be there while we're training at the PC, and even you could watch him in the ring training with other people and still absorb so much from him.
So let's talk about your early days of wrestling. You started around 2014, I think.
Yes, yeah.
So how was your wrestling life before WWE? Where did you start? Where did you train? And how did the opportunity to wrestle for WWE come about eventually?
So the first ever school that I trained at was 4FW in Swindon. I was there probably only for about 5 sessions because it was about a 6-hour round trip to get there. But they were great. I think if I hadn't had the start with them, I might have been turned away. I might have been turned off and put off wrestling. So it was great having them welcome me. Nadia Safai was at the school, so it was great having another female there to welcome me in. And then I moved on to London School of Lucha Libre, where I was training then all the way up until the pandemic. The school's sadly closed down now because they don't have a venue. But I learned a lot from them, and it was through them that I got my first opportunity to be a Rosebud in 2014, which was a great experience. I mean, at that point, I was only, I think, 2 months into my wrestling journey, and I'm there backstage at Raw and SmackDown, which was just mind-blowing to me. And eventually my end with WWE came, I think, through Progress. I mean, I'd done a tryout in 2015, so WWE were aware of me, but the 3 guys that ran Progress were also involved in the writing team, and I'd recently started working for them. So I think through working there, they'd informed WWE about me, and that's how I got me in. But for a long time, I wasn't actually signed with WWE. I was just there working essentially as an extra for my first about 6 months. And then I got offered a contract later on. I remember actually, it was me and Sid Scala. We got our contracts on the same day, and he's a great friend of mine. So that was a real special moment for us, signing our contracts on the same day and being in that together. And it's actually at his school that I train at now. So I started there just before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, that's been the main place that I train. And it's a great school, and it's brilliant as well because Sid understands the WWE system, and he's a part of all of our match study classes as well. So things that the coaches give me, notes that they give me, I can inform him, and he can make sure that even in between camps, I'm working on those things consistently, and he's making sure that I'm sticking to my goals and sticking to the things that I need to work on.
You've talked about Progress a bit and wrestling there before WWE. You recently returned there. You had a match against Tonga. You beat Alexis Falcon. So what's next for Nina Semmers in Progress?
So initially, I thought I would just be climbing straight to the top, straight for the Progress Women's Championship. I mean, I am undefeated in my return so far, but Alexis Falcon has gone out of her way to try and ruin my return. I mean, just after my victory with Tonga, I got on the microphone because, of course, everyone wanted to hear my voice, and she interrupted that. Then I beat her in our match. I was on the stage again, addressing my fans, and she decided to play a prank and give me a bloodbath on the ring. So, on the stage, rather. So, I mean, for now, Alexis Falcon is my sole focus in WWE, in Progress. I need to make her pay. I need to make her pay for what she's done. I won the battle. She started a war, and I'm going to be the one that's going to win the war. So I am laser focused on Alexa Falcon in Progress at the moment.
So that is something that we all can look forward to seeing. Eve, you mentioned we are taping this 2 days before the Wrestle Queendom show.
Yes.
On November 13. So you've recently been in a 6-man. I think this was the first non-dark match you've did in a while for them.
Yes.
So what's in store for Eve?
So Wrestle Queendom is huge. It's the biggest show that we have in the Pro Wrestling Eve calendar. The last Pro Wrestling Eve Wrestle Queendom was the first one that I've missed, again, due to our restrictions, but I was part of all of the first 3. The first Wrestle Queendom was when I won the wildcard ladder match, which I used to cash in and win the Pro Wrestling Eve Championship. So Wrestle Queendom is always really, really important to me. And this one's no different because I'm facing Lizzie Evo, and I feel like Lizzie Evo is someone who, since COVID especially, since the pandemic, she has shot to the top of the women's scene in the UK. She's dominated. She's won championship after championship. And all of that, for the majority, was when I wasn't around. So I feel like part of this match is about regaining my spot at the top of the women's division, at the top of the women's scene. And Lizzie will have her time. You know, she's very young. She's very talented. She's got bags and bags of potential. And I'm not underestimating her at all. This is why I said I've been training hard, preparing for this match. But the match is important for me because I feel like I've got something to prove. You know, I've been away in NXT to UK for a while, and to be honest, people have been talking more about my interviews than my matches from my time there. So this time now for me outside of WWE is all about showing that I am just as much of a badass in the ring as I am on the microphone. And unfortunately for Lizzie, that's going to be at her expense, but it's going to be a hell of a show for everyone watching, for sure.
So people can check that out as well. By the time most of you will be hearing this, the show will be over, but it will be available on demand, I think. Even
Yes.
on demand service. We talked about you being in Austria recently. You've also been to Finland in early October, wrestling Shanna,
Yes.
a veteran of the women's wrestling scene in Europe. So how was that trip and how did that come about?
That was a great experience. They were actually one of the first, so that was for Slam Wrestling Finland. And after I announced my release, they were one of the first companies that contacted me. And I've never been to Finland, so I was absolutely buzzing to go over. And when he mentioned about wrestling Shana, that was a really exciting prospect for me as well, because we've never had a one-on-one match, despite being both in the industry for so long. We used to be a tag team in Pro Wrestling Eve, and a couple of years before that, we'd been on opposite sides of a tag match, but we'd never had a singles match. So, and especially since we were last a tag team, I'd gone to WWE, she'd gone to AEW, and now we were both back on the independents. So it was such an exciting match for me to have, and I feel like we really delivered as well. It was billed as a ladies' dream match, so the pressure was on for us to deliver. And I really think that we did. And I'd love to wrestle her again. I'd love to go back to Finland. The fans there were brilliant. It was a great show to be a part of. So yeah, just an awesome experience all round.
That sounds fun. And we hope to see you in Scandinavia as well, because they have a fledgling wrestling scene there. There's wrestling in Finland, in Denmark, in Sweden now. So I think that's an area of Europe where people should keep an eye on, because they've got a lot of interesting talent there. He also wrestled Regina Rosenthal for Rings of Europe, who also is, I think, from Finland, I think.
Yes, she's Finnish. Great talent as well. It was the first time I'd ever met her, let alone worked her. And yeah, she's a brilliant talent. It's exciting traveling around and seeing various women coming up. I mean, I've recently been announced for my debut at Pro Wrestling Cult on the 10th of December, where I'm wrestling Calypso. So again, that's a first time match for me. And actually it was just announced, well, today. I'm not sure when that will be when this comes out, but I've now had my first Japanese tour announced, which I've known about for a while and I've been desperate to tell the world about. So I'm glad that that's finally public knowledge now. I'm beyond excited for that. Going to Japan is a big bucket list moment for me. And having my first match at Korakuen Hall as well, it's an absolute dream come true. So I cannot wait to go there, absorb the culture, get in the ring with as many women as possible, to delve into the Japanese training. It's such a dream come true for me, and I'm so honored that I get that opportunity, which I wouldn't have had before in WWE. So I feel like sometimes things are meant to be. You know, I've finally got this opportunity now, and I can't wait.
So, what group will that be?
I'm going for Sendai Girls.
Just found it on your Twitter actually.
Yeah. So I got the invitation from Meiko Satomura. So that makes it even more special for me, I think, because I've got, she was our champion for so long. I've got so much respect for her. So knowing that she wants me to come to Japan and wants me to wrestle out there, again, the pressure's on. I need to do her proud, but I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to bring the Nina Samuels show in all contexts, and hopefully the Japanese crowd will love it. I hope so.
So that's actually taking place still in November, right?
Yes. So the first show is the 20th of November at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. And there's a few more while I'm out there as well, which is still to be announced, but hopefully they'll be announced soon as well. But yeah, starting off in Korakuen Hall, I think, is a pretty good way to go.
It sounds great. Congratulations for getting that.
Thank you very much.
Let's circle back a bit to your final days in WWE with NXT UK. The public found out that the brand would be discontinued in mid-August. Did you find out much sooner, or did you find out basically with everybody else?
We had a conference call with the entire roster. So I think we found out probably about 10 minutes before the public found out. They told us on the call, they said, we've got a press release scheduled, which is going out shortly. So we found out slightly before, but yeah, it was definitely not everyone might feel the same, but to me, certainly it was a shock. I mean, you see rumors all the time, there will always be rumors about this brand closing, that brand closing. But I always just tried to live in the moment. I thought it's wasted energy worrying what's going to come. So I tried to live in the moment, and yeah, it was a big shock for me. Initially, we thought, oh, this is exciting. It's becoming Europe. We didn't realize that the implications of that, meaning that we would be let go, and we found that out shortly after the group call. And obviously, at the time, it was devastating. It was very upsetting. But I was actually at a wrestling show at the time that I got my call about my release. So I found out I was getting released about an hour before I had a match on an independent show. That was at a show for Hustle Wrestling. And initially I was thinking, this is the worst place I could be right now. I can't do this. I just want to be at home. But I actually think in hindsight, it was the best place for me to be, because it gave me a chance to straight away go out and do what I love. And it just gave me a sort of an extra bit of grit to me when I went out wrestling, because I felt like I really had something to prove. And I actually wrestled Rain Leverkusen, who you saw in Rings of Europe, who is an incredible talent. Like the level of skill that she has for how new she is in the business is just insane. So I went in with her and had one of my favorite matches that I've ever had. And luckily as well, even coming back from the match, luckily my inbox was already starting to fill up with some offers of shows and things. So very quickly although I was very sad about it, it gave me a sense very quickly of like, I think I'm going to be okay. And I just then started getting excited about all of the things that I could do, all of the opportunities that I could have now that I hadn't been able to have before. So as much of a shock that it was, I actually think it's been a good thing in hindsight, because it's given me a chance to, sort of unleash myself on the world, so to speak.
So if you can talk about that, did they tell you anything about future plans for the brand? I know they publicly announced NXT Europe. Did they communicate anything about a time frame or about you guys being back? Or is it still up in the air? Is it just something you can talk about?
I keep hearing different things, to be honest. And I don't think that it's necessarily anything I'm hearing is wrong. I think just the plan keeps changing. They're essentially starting a brand from scratch, and they're trying to figure out how that brand looks. So for that reason, they didn't give any of us guarantees, which is understandable, because, if they told us 2023, obviously there's a big difference between January 2023 and December 2023. You know, a lot can happen in that time. We don't know who's going to be still available for the brand, who will want to be on the brand, you know, because people's life situations might change. So I understand them not giving anyone any guarantees. And same with, like I said before, how when I was in NXT UK, despite what rumours I'd hear, I wouldn't worry about whether releases were coming or whether the brand would shut down, because I just wanted to focus in the moment and not waste energy worrying about what could be. And in the same vein now, in my head, I'm living my life as if I'm not going to be going to NXT Europe, because I just want to enjoy the moment, enjoy every opportunity that I have. And if NXT Europe comes about and I'm a part of it, great. But I'm certainly not going to wait around for anything. And right now it's important for me to just live my life as an independent wrestler and enjoy every moment of it. And then if things come back up, it's a blessing, but it's not something that I'm holding out for. You know, right now I'm just enjoying everything.
So is there still contact with WWE? Or are they reaching out to you or reaching out to them, or are you just waiting to hear if anything turns up?
No contact at the moment, not since the release. I don't know if that's the same for everyone. I mean, I still speak to my friends that are in WWE, but no official contact. And I don't think that will change until they've got more of an idea, because, you know, they don't want to give anyone false hope or false promises. And as I say, they're still in the process of figuring out what the brand will be, how it will look. So, and, you know, unless we're part of that discussion, again, like I say, for me, it's not something that I'm thinking about too much. I'm just trying to focus on the now and focus on what I'm doing. It's certainly a very exciting prospect. As I say, I've had a chance to travel around Europe more recently and seen there's a lot of talent there. So I think as and when it does come back, it's going to be a great platform for people, because NXT UK was a great platform for me. And from what I hear, they're wanting to go bigger and better with NXT Europe. So I'm sure for those involved, it's going to be a wonderful experience and a wonderful thing to be part of.
So you've talked about Japan being a big bucket list item for you that you finally get to realize now. Are there any other promotions on your bucket list internationally, maybe? Would you like to work in the US, maybe, or for Stardom in Japan? What are some of the dreams and hopes of Nina Samuels for the future?
America's definitely a big goal for me. I've never wrestled in America. As I say, I was meant to be going out there. But that got cut short because of the pandemic. So that's definitely something that I'd like to do. And I'm very open to opportunities that come my way. For example, you know, wrestling in Finland and Austria wasn't something I knew I wanted to do until I was offered the opportunity. So yeah, I'm very open to opportunities that come my way. I love traveling. I love meeting new people. I love working with new people. So yeah, no specific set places at this point, but I just want to really embrace independent wrestler life and travel as much as I can, wrestle as many places as I can, and, you know, reach the highest heights that I can within those promotions. You know, I'm a former Pro Wrestling Eve champion, so I would love to go and chase after that again. And even within Progress as well. Most of my time in Progress, I was working as a manager for Ginny as part of her faction. So I would love to just climb the ladder as much as I can in Progress, bring as many eyes to Progress as I can, raise the bar in the already very high bar that the women's division has set. Just continue to raise that and have as many banger matches as I can. That's the goal.
That sounds like a great goal, and hope we can all watch you accomplish that. This will probably air in late November, early December. So okay. If you've got any dates scheduled after that, where can people see you, and also where can people find you online, social media, any merch online stores where people can get more of the Nina Samuels experience?
Yes, so my merchandise store has t-shirts and photos. So that is ninasamuels.bigcartel.com. I ship worldwide, so wherever you live, I can ship there. My next show, so as I say, Wrestle Queen will have aired by the time this comes out. I'll still be in Japan by the time this comes out. And when I get back from Japan, I've got a show in Fight Factory in Dublin. So this will be my second trip there. So that will be on the 9th of December. Then the 10th of December, I'm off to Pro Wrestling Cult, which will be my first time there. I'm really excited about that. And then beyond there, just keep an eye out on my social medias. I'm going to have more dates announced for Progress, for Pro Wrestling Eve, Rise as well. Up north is another company that I'm going to be wrestling for fairly regularly. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled on my socials. My Twitter and Instagram is Nina Samuels 123, and I'm going to be announcing all of my dates there.
And Wrestling Cult, for our listeners in Germany, which will be most of you probably, it's in Oberhausen. It's right next to the Turbinenhalle. So if you've ever been to a WXW show, it's basically in the same vicinity. And yet, check out Wrestle Cult. Always been some fun shows when we've been there. And do you know who will be your opponent at the show?
Yes, Calypso is who I'm wrestling. So it'll be the first time I've ever wrestled her. So really looking forward to that.
And there's also the on-demand services for Progress and Eve, where people can check out more of you, also of your earlier stuff. We talked about there's quite a library of Nina Samuels matches for Pro Wrestling Eve. And yeah, Nina, thanks a lot for doing the show today, and all the best for your future.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Headlock Pro Wrestling Interview.